Carol Wallace, who, of course, you know, is our middle school principal, and someone who's been here for many, many years, and who has done a brilliant job in the middle school teaching our kids how to say hello and also how to say goodbye. That both of those are absolutely essential pieces in the whole puzzle. One of the, it was interesting, we were, Gareth and I, and Howell's the head of the British school, and the head of the French school, were just down at the Chamber of Commerce the other day being interviewed about the schools and what's happening there and how's it look for the next year. And one of the things that I said, of course, we know right now there's a downturn in the local oil industry. We also know that things on the NATO side are very healthy, and actually that those who are living here and know of a fair number of people who are leaving think everybody's leaving. If I'm leaving, then everybody's leaving. Or if I know 3 or 4 of my best friends who are leaving, that means that this town is going to be very different. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is that you know who's leaving, but you don't know who's coming. And I guess from my point of view, I would ask you to stay optimistic, to know that, I mean, if we had Sarah Osborne here, our admissions director, she would say the same thing as Anne Howells from the British school said, as Josiane from the French school said, which is, yes, people are leaving, but there are all kinds of new ones coming in. And in actual fact, we now know of more new ones coming in than ones who are leaving. That doesn't mean that we're not going to miss those of you who are leaving, and we'll look forward to staying in contact with you wherever you go in the world. But downturns come and go, and upswings come and go as well. And what we, the 3 schools getting together, we're really pleased to hear that all 3 of us were experiencing the same thing. That whereas we were saying goodbye to folks, we're also having very busy admissions offices. So I guess my point is, transition is one of those things that's a part of us and a part of what we're doing, and is very personal to each of us, tied in with how our children are reacting to either the idea of seeing their rooms packed up, or seeing their best friends get ready to move away, whether they're going to be graduating from high school, that's a whole other transition, or whether you as a family are going to be moving somewhere. I'm really pleased that here at the school, we have folks like Carol Wallace and our other principals and our counselors and our teachers who know our students and can help them through the transition process. And I'm particularly happy that all of you are going to be able to tap in with what Carol has to share with you today. So enjoy, keep in mind, it's just one more chapter in your lives. I say that because I'm transitioning too. The next chapter we're all going to live through and come out on the other side with even more interesting facets of our remarkable lives. So, Carol, over
Thank
to
you. Good morning. Thank you, Linda. Morning,
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Thank you very much for coming today. Hopefully what I have to share with you will be useful in some way to you. Whether it's just one thing that you get from this today that makes you go, oh, okay, your little aha moment today. Much of it you may have seen before. It's not new, but this point in your lives, at this point, where you're going, what's happening, how old your children are, it's a new situation every time. So hopefully I can share some things with you. I'll leave some time for questions at the end. I have so much stuff here, but I'll try and be as succinct as I can. What I'm going to do is just, hopefully you had a chance just to read that little quote. I think it's very important to remember. True friendship isn't about being inseparable, it's being being separated and nothing changes. So something important to remember, especially in this age where fortunately we can be anywhere in the world and still be able to FaceTime or Skype and feel close by with people. And I think that's a very fortunate aspect of technology. If we think back, many years ago when my parents left Scotland and Ireland and moved to the United States, and my mum didn't see her mum again for, I think it was almost 10 years. And maybe the occasional phone call, and maybe a letter now and again. Well, letters, yes, but phone calls occasionally. And it just hits home to me how more connected we are, and that's very fortunate, so keep that in mind too. So I'll just give you a little plan of what we plan to do today, just so you have an outline of what we're doing. Obviously that's happened. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a third culture kid is. I know some of you know. I'm going to talk a little bit about adolescence, particularly now with change, and what your adolescent child may be experiencing. A little bit about the social and emotional health at this time. How ISS helps our students through the transition into ISS and leaving. How you as parents can help with this. And advice for you as well. It's not just all about your children, it's about you too, okay? And strategies for surviving the departure, if that is the case for you, if you are actually departing Stavanger soon. But I just want to remind all of you that everyone sitting in this room and every single person in ISS is going through a transition of some kind. Every single child is moving into a new grade. That in itself is a transition. I see some faces here who were sitting listening to me about transitioning from 5 to 6 just a couple of weeks ago. That's a transition. 8th to 9th is another bigger transition. 12th grade, graduating and going on to further education, to gap years, to the world of work, whatever they choose to do, that's another transition. So there are several things happening. The other transition may be that some of you are leaving ISS, leaving Norway and moving somewhere else. So when we talk about transitions with our students, we're not just talking to the smaller group of students that are leaving, we're talking to all of them, and we're giving them strategies for coping with change of any kind. And as you're probably realizing, if you have adolescents in your house, coping with change is harder at that age than it is when they are younger. And it all ties in with everything that's happening to do with adolescence anyway, coupled with change. They're not as good with change. So I'll give you some advice, help you, hopefully you get something. And many and much of the information that I give you today isn't new, but please look at it from your unique individual perspective. Look at it from the perspective of your unique individual children at this particular age that they are, because it changes every time. So the last time you moved, your children were in the age that they are now. So that's how we'll kind of approach it today. Does that sound okay? All right. Please at any time just ask questions. I'll leave some time at the end. I won't go through my millions of slides, and I'll leave some questions if you have them. Hopefully I'll answer some of them on the way. Okay, you hear this term, TCK, third culture kid, all the time, but what does it actually mean? Okay, it means a third culture kid is a person who spent significant parts of his or her developmental years outside the parent's culture. Although elements from each culture are assimilated into their life experience, the self of belonging is in a relationship to others of a similar background. So that's what we call a third culture kid. If you hear that TCK, that's what that means. But things are progressing since this term came out. And things have moved on, and you may not have heard this, but there is, and that's from this book, Third Culture Kids, An Experience of Growing Up Among Worlds, but there's a new term. Has anyone heard? Okay, the new term is cross-cultural kid, CCK, as you know, they're not just maybe one, there are many. And not just cultures, but languages and countries and all of that. So cross-cultural kid, or CCK, is becoming the more commonly used term. Okay? So, that's just the definition now. So they've got a little subgroup, right? A person who has lived in or meaningfully interacted with 2 or more cultural environments for significant periods of time. So looking around this room, there are many of you who fit into that category, yes? So again, it's just the subgroup, same author. Okay? So, how do we process goodbyes? Okay? Very important part. And I always emphasize to my students, make sure you say a good bye. That's such an important thing to do. And I'll explain to you why as we go through what tends to happen and what you may see at home that they're starting to do. And it's all connected up with change. Okay? Saying goodbye often triggers a sense of hopelessness or rootlessness, and sometimes these things might come across as negative, but there are always the positives to it, and I'll make sure I always emphasize that. This is what they may feel to start with. Again, forced to connect with friends, familiarity, feelings of loss kick in. They just want to stay where they are with the same friends. That's what we experience in the middle school. That's what they want. They just want to stay put. And I'm generalizing because some are ready, some have anticipated, some know that they're moving. Some students who are in 6th grade right now just want to stay where they are. They don't want to go to 7th grade yet. They just want to stay where they are. Some 5th grade students can't wait to get to 6th grade. Some are like, just want to stay a little bit longer. Our 8th graders, some of them are just really ready for high school, and others are, can I just stay in the middle school a little bit longer? This is my comfort zone. You know, things are so vastly different. So that's very typical in the middle years. And when I'm saying middle years, I'm not just meaning grades 6, 7, and 8. Go beyond a little bit and go younger a little bit too. Of course, home is where the heart is. And wherever you are is home. You have a home somewhere else too, but wherever you are becomes home. And that's a very important aspect for your children to recognize. So how they perceive themselves in relation to the culture of their parents. They're in a different culture, and your culture is maybe different. So it's that clash sometimes, but how do you make those two merge together? It impacts their perception of home, impacts how they relate to others. Now some people take that as a negative. I certainly think that is a positive, because they're interacting with different people from different backgrounds, different cultures. That's a huge plus. And as you see our students become much more tolerant, understanding, self-confident, their confidence and ability just to be able to interact with people. It's amazing. As I say, all of that can be viewed in a positive or negative way, and what you should really try and do is always put the positive spin on things for your children. But always, but at the same time, being aware that there sometimes is that negative side too. How can a family create their own definition of home, no matter where you are? What family traditions or customs that are routine or tangible items that you can carry on no matter where you are? Yeah?
Your iPad.
Pardon?
Your iPad.
Your iPad. There we go. So, you know, and what is your definition of home? Right? Are you always referring to home to being somewhere else when you're with your family? Or are you referring to home being here? This is where home is right now. And if you're continually referring to home being whatever country you classify as home, because sometimes that's difficult, then they're constantly getting the message that this is, I don't really need to settle here. This isn't home. So, is home defined as eating together at the dinner table? having a conversation at the dinner table with no technology interruptions. Right? Impossible? Could it be possible? Yes, it could. Yeah. A favourite board game that you play as a family? Building something together? An inside joke? Secret handshake? Baking somebody's secret recipe? This was a suggestion from somebody, family bonfires wherever they went in the world. At some point they built their family bonfire and they built it up as everyone has a role, no matter where you are in the world. You can always build a little fire. That's just one example. Speaking in your own language, whatever that one is. Finding other people who have a similar language always helps. Just very 2 minutes, 2 minutes. Share something at your table that you define as home. Or share with me. Would you rather just do that this way? Something. Would any of those things happen?
It's all of those.
It's all of those. Of course it is. It's all of those.
It's
Can you
just
think of
making,
more?
One tradition. For
One tradition that you carry with you wherever you go.
Yeah,
And
you
yeah,
Well,
Carol.
the one thing the list doesn't address is anything spiritual. I mean,
Of
there's
course.
your dinner table prayers and bedtime
Absolutely.
prayers.
The church that you find, here, the community that you find that's connected to your cup. Absolutely, absolutely. That's not an exhaustive list of any kind. Yes.
Family calendar.
Family calendar.
We all have to fit around each other together, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And having a conversation about that, because that doesn't just happen. You can't just put something else on top of something else. There has to be a discussion about what happens. Anything else? Something that you do that might be useful to others? Yeah.
Whenever we move to somewhere, I realize that my son always talks about whatever was before. And in the beginning, I'm like, no, I wanted to change the subject, show how exciting this is.
Places.
But then I realized that he stopped telling me stuff. So it's okay for them to talk about what happened before and the people and everything, and we should encourage that because anyway, it keeps the line of conversation open.
Absolutely.
But it's one of the stressors that we have when we move, and when we're gonna move, it starts from here. Oh, I'm gonna miss this, I'm gonna miss that. So just talking, I guess, about anything.
Correct.
It
And letting them
really-
talk.
Yeah,
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And here's an example. 17th of May just happened, and I've been here a long time now, and there's many families that have come through who have left who I'm still connected with in many ways. And the amount of people that contacted me to say, Happy 17th of May, this is what we're doing we're now in Kuala Lumpur, and took a picture of we had our 17th of May breakfast, here are our flags, and some pictures were on Facebook of us on the parade, and they were all, and talking to and carrying on a tradition from here as they move somewhere else. So each time you move, you gather new family traditions that reminds you of all the wonderful memories that you have from those times. And remember, the amount of time that they've been here is a significant amount of their life. Even if it's 1 year, it's a significant time, and they have changed as a person by being here. So have you. The people you've interacted with, everything that's happened to you has changed you and your family the better.
One more?
One more, yes?
Because I like to talk to the children, and I think I've actually said home is where we are.
Correct.
But one thing that I have been very conscious of as well, when they're smaller, it seems to me like kids tend to do as their parents, if that makes sense. If you're nervous about the move, so are they. If you're apprehensive, so are they. And I think that's important to remember. When they're smaller, I'm not sure how they are when they're adolescents in that though.
Yeah, that's where, nice segue, thank you, because that's what we're going to move into. Because I think it's important also just to focus in a little bit on adolescence and what's happening to them anyway. And I know some of you have heard this from me before, but I don't think you can hear it too often. Because do you all have adolescents? Put your hand up. Okay, you will have at some point too. Okay, so social emotional impact for children at adolescence time. Okay, I'm just going to very quickly go through this, but more just giving a little background about what an adolescent is, because sometimes there's a big misconception about that as well. So, the period lasting from age 11 to 21, okay? It's not just the middle school years, as many people sometimes think. It's much wider than that, and with the latest brain research, we're learning more about that all the time. Obviously, there are different stages of adolescence, but it's the transition between childhood and adulthood, okay? And I'm focusing in on strong emotions here, because that's part of adolescence, and you add transition and change into there, and you get a very different mix. Okay? Some of these might frustrate you, but they're developmentally normal and a natural part of adolescence growth. But it's good to know what they are, so you can anticipate, identify them, and then be able to deal with them. If
Just said it went up to 50 before.
Yep, that's just a general age range, of course. Yeah. And for some of you, and I know I did some of this earlier on in the school year. I think it was you, Laura, that mentioned to me one day that she sat there quite smugly listening to this. Oh gosh, no, not identifying with any of this. No, none of this. And she saw me a couple of weeks. Help! She said, help me! Suddenly, because it's not a time element where it's exactly at this point and exactly at this age, and they're all different. And so they may sail through the middle school years, and suddenly I had parents from it coming back going, oh yeah, they're 10th grade now, and now I'm seeing this. So it really varies. So 3 main. So this is late primary school, okay, early adolescence, so 4th and 5th grade. Okay. Then we have middle adolescence, which is that middle school roller coaster years, and that's quite often viewed in a negative way. People look at me in a genuine horror sometimes and say, "Oh my gosh, you're the middle school principal? Oh my goodness!" And I say, well, I absolutely love it, because you get them. If you understand them, I love them, and if you have somebody and a group of teachers around that understand what they're going through and help them and guide them and support them and care for them through there, it really helps. So this is the tough bit for parents sometimes. Sorry, that's meant to say separate. Development of separate identity from their parents. Okay, sometimes that's hard to cope with. They're starting to assert a little bit of independence, and maybe what you say, they just roll their eyes. And everything that comes out of your mouth is just stupid. But I could say the identical thing, and they go, what Miss Wallace says. Okay? And that's the hard bit for you sometimes. And then we have late adolescence up to 22. Now sometimes that's the most sort of, people go, oh, because that takes them right through, for most people, right through further education as well. And when I hear about students at university not having a kind of like a mentor, tutor, or somebody who's there to support them, I'm a little bit shocked and horrified. So if you have children who are heading off to university, have a little look around and see what support systems are there for them too. Not just what quality of education they're getting, but what support systems are there for them. When like here at school we have the support system with our counsellors and our teachers, and they're all there and they know them and they see them and they can see changes. How is that at the further education institution that your child is going to? Is that there? So on 22, so they're fully developed and should have a distinct identity and should have well-informed opinions and ideas. So very quickly, here's a child brain, a young adolescent brain. So the adolescent brain there, middle school have the young adolescent brain. Their brain is not the same as yours. They don't think the same way. They don't act the same way. They don't do the same way. So saying to them, what were you thinking? Doesn't work, okay? Adult brain, 22 years, so students, and including further education, and then not completely formed until the age of
Or
50 clearly. But actually, well, they say round about 40. 40, yes. Well, no, because that's a general, so it's a little bit of leeway either way. 50, you know. Okay, so yeah. So there's still, and we're still learning so much about the brain with the advent of the imaging now that we can do on brains. They're seeing lots of different things that are just blowing our normal preconceptions out of the ballpark, as I say. Okay, so we're going to focus a little bit on emotional because adolescents are emotional in a good way, but sometimes it can be a struggle. So they're unpredictably emotional, and that's important to know. So they're sensitive and prone to outbursts. So just see if you identify with any of these. They're vulnerable to emotional pleas, can be easily manipulated. That's not from you, but from others. Okay.
Unfortunately.
Why can't I manipulate them?
Of course you can. You know you can. You do all the time.
it's actually tough to resist to manipulate.
It's very tough to resist.
Because I know that he's emotional, and if I,
Yes.
speak in the right tone of voice, I
Yes.
can guilt him into doing something. It's very tough
Very.
to resist the manipulation because you know that you're not doing them any, you're not helping them actually. You're
But
making
you
them
might be.
more easily.
But you might be, depending on what the situation is.
Yeah, I know, but it's a crutch that you can lean on so much
Yeah.
that it becomes bad for them because then they will always tell you yes because they will feel guilty. What they feel with you, they will feel with their friends, which you don't want them.
Yep, it's a difficult juggling path, okay? They start to develop increasing capacity for empathy, caring for somebody else, and they need to do it. They need to find some outlet for doing something for others that is not just for them. Because that's the other aspect of adolescence. They start to become extremely self-centered. And so doing something for someone else with no benefit for them is so important. So that's why we have this service learning opportunities at school, and as they move through into our high school and into the IB recognizes that as well as academic achievement, they need to be doing creativity, action, service. That's what CAS stands for, service element, where they need to do something for someone else. So you may have children that are already doing that through your church, whatever it is they're doing, and how are they doing something for someone else? Or even just talking to them about how they can help someone else and develop that empathy. And they start to experience the whole sexuality as well, and it's all a combined potent mix. And sometimes with the manipulation part, okay, may engage in sexual behavior without realizing the consequence. So there's all of that easily manipulation, peer pressure, all in there. Okay, and obviously we have physical changes at the same time. So you might see them going through that clumsy, uncoordinated phase as they grow at different rates, and their arms and their everything, they start to fall over things and drop things and all of that. Perfectly natural. They become highly self-conscious. So body image becomes, particularly with our girls, but also with boys, it always tends to go the attention to the girls, but boys too. Trying to make sure they maintain a positive body image. You, ladies, are all your role models to your daughters as well. So be conscious when you're talking about your diets, if you're on diets, in front of your adolescent daughters, because they don't need to do the diets yet. They need to eat because they're growing, okay? Yes, they fluctuate between hyperness and lethargy. Yes, they get really, and then suddenly they're hyper, and they absolutely need physical activity. Unquestionable, they absolutely need it. Does your child have outlet for physical activity in some way? If they don't, you need to start, you must try and include that somehow in their lifestyle. Yes, they have PE at school, every child gets PE at school, but in addition to that, are they doing something physical? Okay, and then obviously, I'm going to go through these faster because they have that intellectual change. They start becoming argumentative with you. Yeah. And so they have this intense need to be right. Yeah? You see people nodding their heads. But at the same time, what they're needing and what they're craving is for you to give them a little bit more responsibility. But along with that comes trust. They have to earn your trust when you give them responsibility. So it's twofold there. But they really do need some feeling that they have some control over their life, that not everything is decided for them. Now think about your move. That comes out of all of your control. You know, you get told from whatever company, we're moving. Yeah? We're moving. And it might be very soon. And so suddenly that comes in. And how you let your children know that, and how are they included in that whole process? Are they just told this is happening, this is what's going to happen? Or can they, is there some way you can give them a feeling that they're involved and that they have some kind of control over what they do, even a small thing? And then, this is very common. Intense focus on something new, and then they lack the discipline to sustain it. Yeah? Oh yes, we're going to do this and this and this. And in middle school I see it all the time. They want to do absolutely every extracurricular activity that's going. They want to just do everything. And then very quickly they lose some kind of enthusiasm for it, and they've made commitments to, and then you have to deal with that. So it's again, well, you're the one that maybe let's slow down a little bit. Let's maybe just pick one or two just now and see how you get on with that and do these couple of things well, and then try something else. So, again, rapid mood change, massive changes in the brain. The massive changes are happening again, never happened before after there were 2. So massive changes when they're 2, then it sort of levels out for a while, then massive changes again later on in adolescence. So physical, emotional, the brain, all of it, intellectual, it's all happening at the same time. Okay, so social interactions, okay, or a move to a new school or country can exacerbate the emotional state of adolescence. So combined with everything else that's naturally happening, you add a move in there, and then it just becomes a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm going to flick through these because I want to get through. Okay. So here we go again. I'm focusing in on the ones to do with friends and emotions because that connects to our theme today. So they try out, they associate with different peer groups, and they change peer groups. You may have noticed as they're going through middle school that the peer groups may change a little bit. Okay, unfortunately, yes, and sadly for you, this tends to happen. Alright, peers begin to take the relationship with their peers, their friends, starts to take a greater importance over relationships with the family. And that's a really hard one to come to terms with. But think about it now in terms of a transition. You're about to break them away from that friendship, peer group that they have. Now, that's an extremely important part of their life right now. This little circle of friends is very, very important to them. And so the process for you to take them away from that is important. And understand, they need to know that you understand that this is a big deal for them. So saying, don't worry, I'll make some more friends. They need more than that. They need to see that you understand that this is hard for them, and that's why we encourage them how to say goodbye properly, because they start to exhibit some characteristics which makes it not a goodbye. Okay? They have a stronger emphasis on their friends' views, friends' perceptions, friends' values. values rather than yours. Okay? Peer pressure is a very powerful thing in all adolescents. And so sometimes they're a little bit vulnerable to negative peer pressure. So taking that in a general way, you know, maybe peer pressure to drink alcohol or smoke a cigarette or engage in sexual behavior, all of that. So they'll try and test your boundaries, they'll test the rules. Remember, it's hard at some points, but it's driven by their need to develop their own independence. So there's a little bit of a struggle there between you and your adolescent because they feel they need a little bit more responsibility. But I talk to the students about that. Responsibility, trust. If you haven't gained the trust of your parents, how can they give you extra responsibility? But of course, they absolutely need the boundaries and the rules. You have to give them to them, and they need to know what they are. And you need to be the parent, not their friend. That is hard sometimes, being the parent, taking the unpopular choice. Having your child say, I hate you! Nobody else gets this. Nobody else has this. No one else's parent takes their iPad away when they go to bed. All of the children are going to this party and staying till this time, whatever the example is. My strong advice to you is stay in communication with those parents, that group of friends that they have. And if the parents talk, they can't do the whole comparison thing. Such and such as mum lets them do that. And you'll say, no, because I've just chatted to such and such as mum. Sorry, you're going to say something?
Well, in case you forget, because you have also said that sometimes they like that they can hide behind your rules
Yes?
and not actually get into a situation that they don't want because they're thinking, yeah, my mum says I'm not allowed to.
Mhm.
And deep inside they actually feel that's it's a good thing to hide.
Mhm.
I didn't see that, so I have to say.
Yes?
Because it's useful.
Thank you. Just add in whenever you do. Okay. Self-centered. I talked about that before. So empathy. Okay, they're still developing. So they come off sometimes as self-centered and focus on their own needs. If you take that to home, you know, everything needs to be about them. If you haven't experienced that yet, that may come on. Okay. So, and it resolves itself. There's always good news at the end. It does resolve itself. Okay. So, why is this so difficult for our third culture or cross-cultural kids? Okay. So, as obviously they're going through these growing pains and all of that, they need to be accepted and liked. And after working so hard to find their niche, to find their little group of friends, they're settled. Okay, and initially there's a devastating feeling that they have to start all over again. And it gets harder as they enter into adolescence. A little bit younger, everything's just very exciting. It's like Christmas every day. New adventures, yeah? The peer, knowing their peer social interactions are so important. As an adolescent to hear this, it's a much more devastating news than it is when they're younger. Okay, so to understand that, and that's why I was saying, you know, if it's, you know, some students in the past have said, oh, mom says, oh, I'll make new friends, but I really like these friends, you know, and I'm thinking, yes, of course you do. Okay, so the role of the culture is that it gives us a sense of belonging. So if you know the rules, you're seen as an us rather than a them. So where are you going next? What kind of culture is that? How different is that from here? How can you prepare them for that new culture so we get away from culture shock, which I'll explain a little bit. Okay? Having to leave this newly created culture can be trying. And they do actually go through that cycle of loss. Just like loss as in grieving when you lose a loved one. For them it might be a pet even. They go through that. There is stages where they go through. But there's also nothing wrong with a good cry. There's nothing wrong with you having a good cry. It's very important. And it's very important for your children to know that. And we see it at school sometimes too, and our teachers understand that. What are you noticing? observe any unusual behavior, out of character behavior, okay, what we might see at school. Sometimes we see a decline in academic achievement, performance motivation, and their own self-perception. That sometimes changes, and I'm seeing it at the moment with some, okay? We all know that we need to keep a close eye on it. We know that we need to be understanding, but at the same time, in an understanding way, we also need to keep them accountable to get through the school year successfully. So it's that juggling act, it's that balancing act. It's sometimes where they may experiment with at-risk behaviours. We start to see them distancing themselves. That's what I'm talking about with the good goodbye. They start to talk negatively about their friends, about the school. They fall out with their friends. They manufacture an argument with them. If I'm not on good terms with this person when I leave, it's going to be easier to go. If I talk negatively about the school and show that I'm really excited about go somewhere else, it's not going to be hard to leave this school. But inside, they're really sad about leaving. But they're trying to find a way to make it easier for themselves. But in the long run, if they don't say the goodbye, they're going to regret it later. So that's what I keep talking to them about, trying to make sure that they say this properly goodbye. How can we help, right? As I said, we already understand. We're working with them right now. We're talking about transition and letting them talk about what they are feeling. They're not just being talked at, they're getting a chance to actually say how they're feeling. So the other students around in the class are also hearing it. And it's not just about leaving Norway. It's about moving grades, as I said before, because everybody's in there. If you're transferring on to another school or international school, you know, make sure you've checked not just what the curriculum is, but, you know, what's the support system at that next school? How is your child going to be emotionally supported when they move? That's just as important as finding out what they're going to be learning. How are they going to be supported? Because if they're not happy, if they're stressed, they're not going to learn. You know, all of these different things. Check what they have. What's their transition process? If you're transferring home, and I just put it in brackets like that because home is home, but it's different now. You're different. So don't assume that this process is going to be easier. Oh, we're going back to the same school. We're going back to our old house, our old neighborhood. Yes, you are. And that's good because there'll be some familiar things. But remember, you have changed. Everybody else has carried on as normal. And you arrive back, and those children, peers of your children, are that many years older and have had time there without your children. So it's not always as easy as you think. Schools are teeming with resources, so tap into them. This school is, your future school is. Please make sure you ask those questions when you go to see schools, not just, you know, what is it they're going to be learning, but when I have families coming around, it's really important that they ask or I tell them about what the support system is for the children coming in. So, hopefully this has helped you to try and understand what's going on. Talk to them what's going on in their heads and their hearts, because their little hearts are sometimes aching a little bit. As I said, team up with the new school. Team this school up with that school, if that helps. Weave in those family traditions. What are you going to take from Norway that's going to become a new family tradition for you? What is it that you want to take with you that you'll always remember? Because Norway is always going to be a part of your life. And not talking about it, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You know, this is another little ones, somebody said they collect things as they go along and they bring things with them. So whatever it is, you know, fridge magnets or whatever it is you collect, you know, there'll always be a visual reminder of your time. Create new memories. Okay, the power of sight, sound, smells. A favorite song from when you were here at this time. Pictures, of course. And smells. I spent my first 9 years of my life in the United States. I was born in New York. No, I don't sound like I do. But then I moved to Scotland when I was 8.5 years old. And there are certain tastes and certain smells that I only associate with my under 9-year-old self. It's an instant memory. And I was 9 a long time ago. So it's still there. So it's very, very powerful. And many of our students coming back here to ISS to visit, they walk in the school door and they say 2 things to me. Oh, so much smaller than I remember. And the second thing they say to me is, oh, it has the same smell. I'm like, what does it smell like? And they can't identify what the smell is, but it's a memory smell for them. They walk in the door and that's a familiar smell. None of them can identify what it is, but they all say it.
Cool down, done.
Pardon? It could be in the spring. It's definitely the fertilizer. It's not the school. It's the outside. But anyway, so you may discover that they may say at some point to you, "Oh, that smell reminds me of Norway." You know, then capture that. Go with it. Talk to them. That's your link into talking about your previous time. Again, they are very resilient. They are. Okay? Think about them moving to here. When you moved here, were they resistant about coming here? Did they not want to leave their friends and their other school? The amount of times when families are coming for their tour, and I have this child who's there who just looks so resistant to anything that's happening to them, but they get here and they don't want to leave here. So it's a process. We had one child who came, he's graduated now, he's just graduated from university, and he came here as a 7th grader, and he moved from his school absolutely not wanting to move. 7th grade, the middle of the middle, just wanted to stay where he was. He got here, and in his mind he thought, all right, if I behave as badly as I possibly can, and do everything, break the rules, be really, really disruptive at home, cause a bit of chaos everywhere I go, my parents will just take me home, or take me back, right? And we knew what he was doing, his parents knew what he was doing, we worked together, got him through this place, this school, this city, he calls home. He has no connection here anymore, his parents don't live here anymore, he comes back to visit every year. Every year. He still has friends here, and he calls it home, his other home. So you get through it. Yeah. Sometimes it's our fear and anxiety that makes the transition difficult. So just be aware of that. You know, sometimes it's the children and the working spouse that settle quickly, and the non-working spouse that has a more difficult time. Okay? So our ISS PA has that transition process in place to help you. That's a wonderful thing to tap into. If you're moving on, what's available at your next school for you to help you settle? Because there's many things for your children. The spouse has got the job that they're moving to. There's many things for them. What is there for you? Take care of yourselves as parents. These all seem obvious, but make sure you just have a little read. It's okay if you're having a hard time with the move, and you're not the only family going through it. But try to avoid being vocally negative about the new location, the moving process, in front of your children. And it does happen. And I've heard children say to me, well, I'm settling, but it's really hard because my mom or dad doesn't seem to be settling too well, and that's hard for me to go home. when I want to go home and tell them all the great things I'm doing at school, and they're not settling, and they stress about that. Yeah? So it's just important to be aware of that. Just very quickly. There's a few stages that you might recognize. Your initial before, yay! We're off. Kids come in and say, I'm moving too, yay! Right? And they're so super excited about it, okay? Everything's intriguing. Then, the initial euphoria wears off and you get irritation and frustration, right? Then you get a gradual adjustment to that idea. You can also think of it the other way, not leaving but coming in. You're gradually adjusting to being here. Okay, initial crisis is over. You're starting to feel comfortable with instead of being isolated, and then you adapt. Okay? And then what happens? You adapt.
Move again.
And it starts all over again. Okay? But you then remember that process and you go through it again. Yes, it does sound a bit like a grieving process, and it's true. There's a denial. Okay? You tend to want to focus things on the way they were or are, and you're not wanting to explore the new thing. Resistance. Yeah. Exploration, you start to then think, this might be quite good. Let's look. And then you start committing. And you commit to where you are, and everything starts to settle. Okay? Take care of yourself. Alright? Because it is stressful. Take care of yourself. Some of you may be here and your working spouse is already gone, and you're left with everything here. Right? That can be stressful. Seek a balance. Some people find this a very calming thing to do. Prime place to vent. Where is that for you? Okay, find someone to talk to. Your children have someone to talk to. Find someone. Okay? Yep. Exercise regularly yourselves. Not just your child. You too. Okay? Get outdoors. Focus on the positive. It's very easy to do the opposite. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. You have to say a goodbye as well. Not just your children. Yeah. Have some fun. Don't let this all be about when the movers are coming in and I'm packing up and I'm blah, 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 blah. Right? You need to have some fun as well. Okay? Be honest. Learn about the new place. Keep connections to home. Keep a scrapbook. Talk about how you feel. Get involved in the school. Ask for help. Do things you enjoy. Find friends to spend time with. And you're not alone. Okay? And it really, really does help if everything becomes an adventure, and that attitude from you just transfers to your children. Okay? You are their role models. This is a little poem. Hope to see if you may identify with it. Moving. Involvement. Oh no. We're going to move when? Where? I don't want to. Yes, I do. Maybe?
No.
Leaving? Cleaning, rummaging, finding, remembering, packing, memories, empty boxes, full boxes, memories, last day, tired, empty, memories, a lump in my throat, goodbye. When we arrive, I'm curious and excited and scared. Will this place ever be home? It's so very new. Sometimes homesickness blows in, like a summer storm, but luckily with each passing cloud it ebbs further away until finally I'm home again. Okay? It's a whole cycle of emotion, and as you're going through that, I'm sure you're identifying with that. And so saying a goodbye, as I said earlier, and I've said all the way through, and the students are like, yes, Miss Wallace, I'll say a goodbye. It's really important that you do. So many things that are there. Their yearbooks, what they write on their title, what they get, what's written from them. The end of year parties that they'll have, that we have at school, the end of year activities. I cannot emphasize enough to you how important it is to stay until they finish the last day. And many times parents say to me, well, they're not doing anything the last week, I'll take them. I'll go early. What they are doing in that last week is the crucial part of the closure of the time here. Staying until the very last day. It's so important. because all of those activities are designed for a reason. Discussions and all of that, closing activities that might not be academic, but are so important. The end of the year assembly for all levels of the school, there is one and it's there for a reason. It's a closure. And they get the chance on that last day to do the big goodbye that everyone does.
Yeah, the bus.
The buses, when we wave you off on the buses, they know that. If students in 8th grade coming to me going, they've been to, this will be their 3rd end of year middle school ceremony, they know what's happening. They're like, can we do this? Can we do that? And they know there's a closure about to happen. And some of the students that leave the weekend before, they miss out on all of that. So that's just a top tip when you move somewhere else as well. Stay. Okay, and then as I just said, there are many things we're doing to help them this process of change. And not only the ones that are leaving, it's so important for the students that are staying here, who will be here next year, they have to say goodbye too. And they have to say goodbye to a friend that might not be here next year. So it's a full cycle of things. They need to be able to do both. Friends need to say. Okay? And I'm not going to go anymore because that's basically what we've talked about. Okay? But it's time for you just to communicate as a family. And I've got one final little clip for you just to watch. There we go. Hopefully this is going to work. What's going on inside their head.
So, how was the first day of school?
It was fine, I guess. I don't know.
Do you ever look at someone and wonder what is going on inside their head?
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did.
Something's wrong. We're gonna find out what's happening, but we'll need support. Signal the husband.
Uh-oh, she's looking at us. What did she say?
Well, sorry, sir. No one's listening.
Is it garbage night? We left the toilet seat up. What? What is it, woman? What?
Signal him again.
So, Riley, how was school?
Gotta be kidding me.
For this, we gave up that Brazilian helicopter pilot?
School was great, all right?
What was that? I thought you said we were gonna act casual.
Riley, is everything okay?
Sir, she just rolled her eyes at us.
All right, make a show of force. I don't want to have to put the foot down.
No, not the foot.
Riley, I do not like this new attitude.
Oh, I'll show you attitude.
No, breathe.
What is your problem? Just leave me alone.
Sir, reporting high levels of sass.
Take it to DEFCON 2.
DEFCON 2.
I don't know where this disrespectful attitude came from.
You want a piece of this, Pop?
Yeah? Well, look.
Prepare the foot.
Keys to safety position. Ready to launch on your command, sir.
Just shut up.
Fire!
That's it. Go to your room.
The foot is down. The foot is down.
Good job, gentlemen. That could have been a disaster.
Well, that was a disaster.
Okay. So and as I just saw, it's also good to have a laugh and to have a smile and to just enjoy. If this is your last few weeks, please enjoy it as much as possible. Take as much as you can. Talk to your children. Enjoy it. Say a goodbye. Make sure it's a goodbye, and make sure your children have that opportunity as well. And I hope that something from here has helped you with that process, whether it is a goodbye process or whether it's for a future goodbye and transitions to somewhere new. But I hope it's been helpful for you, and thank you very much for coming this morning. Are there any questions?
No?
Did I answer them all?
Well, I just wanted to wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful summer. And already I've had a few people over the last couple of weeks come up with ideas for next year. So I think we're almost booked to December with all sorts of clinical psychologists and someone coming in from D&T and maybe someone else I'm going to tap over here to talk about transition and change later on. So please keep the ideas coming and just enjoy the summer. Take care.
Thank you, because there isn't much information about the adolescents out there. And you have beautiful brochures.
Yeah, I do. They're on order though. We have such beautiful brochures that they're all gone. So they're on order, so we'll have some for when we come back next year. It's called Help, how to survive with a pre-adolescent, something like that. Help. Yep.
At the end of one slide there toward the end, you had, we're in the process of developing, and you had two things, and one of them was exit interviews for, what is the primary school?
Yes, so the primary school have got little exit interviews for the students as they're leaving, and it's just little questions like, you know, what have you enjoyed, what are you looking forward to in your new school. With the 5th grade moving to 6th, we gave them a little, they all filled in a little questionnaires. What are you looking forward to about middle school? What are you nervous about middle school? And we've gone back in and answered their questions. So all of that is a process as well. The same with the students who are leaving as well. Yeah. Good. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye. Bye.